皆さんこんにちは and welcome to Shogo's podcast. So today, I'd like to talk a little bit about Will Smith. I'm actually a very, very big fan of his work and I watched so many of his movies and everything, but everyone probably knows that Will Smith is on the news a lot recently because I actually don't watch the news that much. I don't know too much about it, but basically he hit someone at Oscar, was it? He hit the MC or someone, and it was because the person talked about his wife in a bad way or something like that, right? Yeah. And it's actually a really, really big news in Japan too, because there are a lot of people who are big fans of Will Smith in Japan too, just like me. Yep. And there was one really interesting phenomenon that's happening in the U.S. and also in Japan. The thing is that in the U.S., it seems that Will Smith's actions of hitting him has been severely criticized. And I saw on the news that some people are trying to arrest him almost, yeah. And he might actually get arrested, yeah, or sued or something. But in Japan, it's very interesting how Japanese people were actually quite what should I say, welcoming, basically accepted his actions of slapping this man, yeah, of this violence, violence. Now, of course, not everyone though, but I would say like 70% of all Japanese people who discussed about this or mentioned about this are rather supporting Will Smith's action, yeah, and only 30, maybe 20% of the people are against it. And by the way, I'm on the side who's against violence, so I'm on the 20% side. But I think in the US, it would be the opposite. Yeah, 70% of the people who are against violence and 30% are supporting Will Smith's action because he protected his wife and so on and so forth. Yeah. So today, I'd like to talk a little bit about my opinions of what makes this difference. Why do Japanese people accept violence? Because if you probably watched the video of Will Smith slapping this man, he really, really slapped him pretty hard. I think he swung pretty high his arms, and went for a pretty big slap there. Yeah. So considering that, why do Japanese people think that is okay? Now, this is completely my personal opinion, so don't take this as an absolute answer, okay? So this is a little bit different, but I was actually watching a really, really interesting TikTok video. It's actually from, again, Kevin's English Room. I actually reacted to his videos twice in my main channel, so I hope you can check that out. But Kevin's English Room, basically this man called Kevin, he was born and brought up in San Francisco. I'm really sorry if I mistake this is all wrong, but I think he grew up in San Francisco for 13 years, although he is Japanese, and he speaks perfect Japanese too, but he makes a lot of videos comparing the culture in the US and Japan. And one time, he made a video comparing comedy in the US and Japan. Now, so basically, Kevin asked the U.S. comedian, and he said a lot of, what should I say, jokes that are kind of racist, Yeah, because I grew up in the U.S., I completely understand that those things are just jokes, But in Japan, that's considered completely inappropriate. Like, racist topics cannot become a joke, in any way, basically. So that really surprises Japanese people. But on the flip side, if you've ever watched Japanese comedy before, if you haven't, please look up something called manzai. 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 Yeah. It's a really, what should I say, traditional kind. I don't know how long the history is of manzai, but basically it's two comedians that just talk in front of the microphone. It's like stand-up comedy with two people. Yeah. And the one person, typically the manzai is one person is the person who says silly things, and the other person is the person who corrects his mistakes, and that obviously has a script, by the way, and it's a story basically that they do together. The person who says silly things like, I'm gonna be going to the U.S. I'm just gonna be swimming through the Pacific Ocean or something like that, and the other person will probably say like, no, you should ride a boat, kind of thing, That it's not funny at all. I'm sorry, the example is terrible, but something like that. You get what I mean, right? So the other person is more like a regular person. The other person is completely a lunatic and very stupid kind of thing, and that makes laughs, But recently in Japan too, it's gradually declining. But traditionally, the person who corrects the person who is silly, the partner, tends to slap hit the person who said silly things on the head. They would hit their heads and say, why are you saying these silly things? No, that's wrong. And they would typically hit their partner. It has a script, by the way, yes. So in that Kevin's video where they compared the two comedies, Kevin is like, whoa, what the heck? Why is that guy being hit? Oh my gosh, that's violence. That's not funny. And it's really funny because the Japanese side said, being racist isn't funny. And then the US side says, violence isn't funny kind of thing. Yeah. The video itself is really interesting. But I personally felt that this actually has some similarities with the main topic today, with Will Smith smacking the MC and Japanese people accepting it. So again, Japan, as you all know, has a very strict hierarchical relationship, right? So basically, who is superior, who is junior is really, really important because we had a collectivist society for thousands of years, probably thousands of years, and also the Edo shogunate and the Edo, the political measures they took at that time, the system that they created really basically labeled each person. You are higher, you are lower, you are more important, your job is this, you live here, you wear this, and so on and so forth. So deep down within Japanese people, we still have this concept inside our heads. Thankfully, it is gradually declining and disappearing in my generation, yes. I mean, there are some good parts, as I mentioned before in my past videos too, the senpai-kohai concept. It is good in some ways. Like, for example, if you're training in traditional culture and so on and so forth, sometimes it's important that the senpai are responsible for the kohai. The kohai always respects the senpai and you learn respect and so on and so forth. But anyways, what I'm trying to say here is that in the minds of Japanese people, even though if you ask them by words, they will say no. But I think deep down, I really think that many Japanese people think that the superior person, or in this case, the person who is justice or correct, are allowed to do whatever they want to. So in the past, like my parents' generations, teachers were capable of hitting their students to make them sit up straight during class. No, there were literally teachers that always carried a shinai, a bamboo sword, inside a school, smacking around students to teach them what is right or wrong. Literally, even students or girls and boys, it doesn't matter. There were teachers in my mother's generations. They literally were people with swords, with bamboo swords inside the school, walking around carrying it and smacking kids. So, and until I don't know, just a few years back in my generation, I used to belong to the Shorinji Kempo club team, right? When I was in university, I trained in Shorinji Kempo, a kind of martial art. My senpai, that were 3 years older than me, they literally said that if they were lazy during training, they would be smacked in the face by their senpai, by their superiors. And that was normal. That was normal just, I don't know, less than 5 years back. It was still very, very normal that these people would get literally, be applied violence to be taught what was right. Yeah. And that was the norm. The juniors, the kohai couldn't say anything back, because they were the ones that were being taught, right? And the superiors are always right, basically. So this idea has finally, recently, in my generations, I have never seen a teacher with a sword inside the school, or being kicked or punched during training. I know I've never experienced that. It became a big problem in Japan too, and a lot of people got caught by the police. And even the traditional world, like the sumo world, there were a lot of the sumo sensei, the top sumo leaders inside each room, and these people committing violence against their students. And actually, some people die from it, by the way. Some people actually get killed by too much violence because of education and love, by the way. So this idea has just very recently changed, and that was my daughter's voice, by the way. So what I'm trying to say is that because Japan has such a hierarchical society for such a long time, we still, inside our minds, have an idea that if you are a senpai, if you are superior, or even if it's not hierarchical, if you have the justice side, if you have the correct side, you're able to do whatever you want to the other person. That mindset still exists in us, I feel. And that is exactly the reason why there's so much bashing and violence on the internet too. in Japan towards people who had scandals towards, for example, celebrities. I actually talked a little bit about this with Nobita from Japan. I made a collaboration video with him recently, so I hope you can check that out. Basically, Nobita said that the worst part about Japanese society currently is that no one gets a second chance. And why do not people get a second chance is because there are tons of Japanese people who believe that if someone makes a mistake, they are higher than that person because they didn't do anything wrong. So they get to apply as much violence as they want to that person, making them incapable of coming back to society and actually living a regular life. Yep. And this happens at a daily basis. So I really felt that this incident of Will Smith and his smacking the MC, I feel this kind of again showed the inner side of Japanese people's characteristics and their mindsets. And before I end, this will be the end of today's podcast, but I want to emphasize again that I am a person who is against violence, 100%. So I'm completely against Will Smith's action, and I was very, very, very disappointed. So then everyone, as I always say, the ultimate goal of my life is to make all Japan lovers' dreams come true. So I know that there are a lot of I made the mistake again. There's a lot of people studying Japanese. There you go. I always say there's a lot of Japanese. There's a lot of people studying Japanese and are willing to come to Japan to study even more, work, or train in traditional culture and such, right? Yeah. But I'm afraid that Japan will not be able to provide these things in the future because we are facing a lot of social problems. We are losing our traditional culture, and the younger generations who are supposed to be carrying on the good things about Japan are dying at the highest rate in the world because of all the social issues being shoved against them. So I want to dedicate my life to try to make Japan a better place. I want to try to preserve and evolve traditional culture, solve the social problems, and also help out the younger generations so you can have a brighter future. And a few people sometimes ask me, I think I might make a separate podcast about this, but a lot of people ask me like, Shogo, just talk about katana and no social problems. I don't need that kind of videos. But again, culture is finally nurtured on top of peace, you know. When you have peace, when you have abundant abundant supply. I don't know. You understand what I mean, right? You need a very well-stable environment, society, for culture to be nurtured on top of it, right? So that's the reason why I always try to talk about social problems. Just talking about culture will not help to preserve it. We need a society that's capable of supporting this, right? Yeah. So that is my opinion. So that's the reason why I always talk about social problems and willing to try my best to try to solve them. Yep. And anyways, the first step to achieve my ultimate dream of making everyone's dreams come true who are willing to come to Japan is to achieve 1 million subscribers by January 2023 on my main channel. So all your likes and comments will help to boost my videos. New viewers have never seen my videos before, so it'd be great if you can help me out. We actually have less than 15,000 more subscribers to go, so it'd be great if you can help us out with our very last boost right there. Yep. Thanks so much for listening, everyone, and I'll be waiting for your comments about your opinions. Thank you so much.